Grand Rising. This is the Straight Talk Network. My name is Andre Hill, your host, and our co-host, Chairman Terrence Lake. How you doing this morning, sir?
Oh, Grand Rising, everyone. I'm doing great. Beautiful day here in Detroit. We got Montreux Detroit Jazz started yesterday, but it was canceled because of the threat of thunderstorms. But it'll resume today, Sunday, and Monday. So I'm looking forward to getting down there. Yes.
All right. And also our other co-host and engineer, Andre Hill Jr., his the one that represents hey, what are you, Generation X, Y, Z, man?
No, I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial.
Yeah, they kind of switched it up a few times, but I think we're millennial now. All the age.
Yeah. All right, so we got the millennial generation in here. So we got an extreme, extraordinary mixture of personalities and ideologies. How are you doing this morning, man?
I'm all right. I am all right, sir.
All right, so we're gonna get right into this one because this show here is gonna be one of the best. I posted on Facebook on Friday. Good afternoon, family. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Straight Talk Network, and on Facebook and YouTube. You can find us on YouTube live. Just get your settings set to watch us. Do we control our reality through benevolent or malevolent thoughts? Are horror movies used as instruments by the reptilians to keep us in a state of fear, to control and manipulate us? We will examine these concepts as it relates to a group of Caucasian women who have typically benefited from the illusion of white supremacy. We will also show the parallel of melanated people's true extraterrestrial history in our new book, Lucifer's Revenge. Tune in and be enlightened. So, Chairman, I know you sent this tape to us, and I was like, well, this is interesting. And I said, man, this is the topic, because I was having some distortions this week picking up on transmissions from the Most High. And so when you send that tape, I said, this is our topic for the day. So I was glad you sent it. So, once again, our show is designed to elevate the frequency on this planet. By elevating the frequency, we become spiritually enhanced to control our destiny as a species. We will learn to understand that we're all created equal and that we should treat each other the way we want to be treated. And just by elevating to that level of consciousness, we can change and adjust our heading on this planet as a species. And so the chairman and my son and I, that's our purpose. Anytime we're speaking to people, we're trying to enlighten you, give you some additional information for you to process so that we can be all on one accord, operating the frequency, so we can, in a common way, just think about, we want to return to paradise on our planet. Yes. And you do that as a collective, one thought. But if you continue like, I got to get rich, I got to outdo the next man or the next woman, I got to have more things and stuff, it's never going to happen. And that's the purpose of this show. Now, one of the other issues here that I'm concerned about, this woman, I admire her, Ali Shiraz. She gives us a lot of information because her whole theory, her idealisms is to encourage our women to understand. And when I say our, I'm talking about melanated, and that changes over or spills over to our entire species, because every human on this planet got their mitochondrial DNA from a black woman, from a melanated woman. You needed it because It was designed to exist on the surface. So we understand that there are certain extraterrestrial beings that came to this planet, and their primary focus was to separate our women and create a false reality of survival for them, where it operates on its own axis, and it allows these other species to manipulate us and enslave us. So I'm always, personally, I always concentrate on, okay, the first order of business, just like these reptilians or these slave masters, the first order of business is to separate that female out of our culture, or the dependency on the black male or the melanated male, and so we're always focusing on that, and that will in turn help all the other species. Why? Because you got your mitochondrial DNA from this melanated woman, and so when she's in sync, the whole planet is in sync. So Shiraz Ali, she says something. She said that the average melanated woman maxes out at age 14 in terms of maturity, unless they receive some additional information. So our attempt on this show is to give them some additional information. Now, Chairman, you had a chance to see this video. You recall some of the key points in it that you would expand on before we play it?
Well, my take was they're just trying to tell us the truth. There's so many myths that have been told to us, to hold us down. And, they know that there's something special about women, that if they come together, they could change the whole scenery because they're going to bring out that truth. Man, at one time, when I was young, they wouldn't allow women to be on the platform in the churches. It was like, no, you couldn't do that. But today it's a different story because women are getting their opportunity. And look at the Supreme Court. It wasn't a thought. They never thought women would be as high as they are today, because women were held back. But these women are, you got to listen to it. Well, you've listened to it, but our audience has got to listen to these women speak on this level. It's just so inspiring. It gives us so much hope, so much information, to, like you said earlier, we're all created equal. That's not true. We're not all created equal. Spiritually, yes. But as far as our creative bodies, we know that they're different. Some tall, some small, some big, some little, and it's just it's something that we got to get together and give people opportunity, because you never know who's going to be that person that's going to take us to that next level, whether it's male or female. We need somebody in a position to help us get to that point. It's like back in the old days in the tribes, if you had a good leader, the people prospered. If you had a bad leader, then you suffered. So we need the best in the position to help us get to where we're trying to go. And like you mentioned earlier about this heavenly environment on earth, it's here. We just got to make it happen. It's all here. It's been here for us. It's up to us. But the video is gonna excite a lot of people because I'm still excited about it.
Hey, okay. Hey, Junior. So you had a chance to view some of the video. You get enough of it to make some kind of assessment at this point before we play it?
Yeah, I noted a few interesting things. I don't want to be pessimistic.
Just tell us what you see, man. Hey, just keep it real.
I don't want to be pessimistic, but I'm gonna bring this up first, and then probably redeem it a little later.
Well, you know, so when I watch any videos now, and as I stated in the narrative, that Caucasian women, um, they have benefited from these reptilian games, the game of white supremacy, the game of religion, and so I have a level of caution, when I hear them expanding on these different concepts of benevolence, because if you're really benevolent, uh, and if you recognize that your culture benefited from these reptilian gains of white supremacy, enslavement, political control, all of the banking cartels manipulating money. If you benefited for that, what is prompting you, provoking you to attempt to enlighten people? So I'm always open-minded. I have to give all humans the benefit of the doubt, because at some point we will all awaken. One of the key things I appreciated about this video, they really talk about your future self. They don't say it like that, but I try to explain to people, here on this planet, you exist in the future. Your soul is somewhere 1,000 years or 500,000 years in another body, in another, if you're on the physical plane. And that future self is encouraging yourself of today in this timeline to get through this. You're going to overcome all your trials and tribulations. Just maintain faith. And a lot of people want to give that credit to religious figures, and when it's actually you that's encouraging you to get through this, because you will one day become a collective with the supreme being.
Yes.
So therefore you're reaching back saying, you're going to get through this, don't give up. And so I got that flavor from this video. And so I'm encouraging all humans, no matter who you are, no matter what culture you're in, to watch this video, share it, like it, join our network, because we're going to continue to elevate the frequency on this planet. Now, there's some interesting things going on right now. We got this election coming up in November, and I'm not wanting into these politics. And sometimes I'm the same pessimistic mentality that I may have, or question on different groups being promoted right now, even with the election, with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and all these sort of things. So I'd be reading between the lines. So we know these reptilians. We know these reptilians are controlling and manipulating these systems to their benefit, or to continue to extend their control on this planet. As long as we're blind, deaf, and dumb to the true reality, they continue to use us and manipulate it. So let's go ahead and get into the video, and then I'll comment, give some more comments on some of these concepts and ideas after the video. So go ahead, man, shoot it.
All right.
Speaking of fate, do they tell you that Earth has a specific fate, or is it more a destiny that we're choosing what's going to happen with Earth in relation to how we behave?
It's both. And that's something that we need to understand about this unique galactic library that we call Earth, from the Council's perspective, is that this was created to be able to blend fate and destiny so appropriately and so beautifully. And it's really the only place that they've told me that is like this.
Really?
Yeah, there are other 3D environments that are based primarily just upon fate, so it doesn't get out of control and so that they don't like blow up Earth or kill each other. but we have a lot of that potential, and we have a lot of potential that gets so far with the potential for blowing things up and hurting each other. But then fate steps in and says, okay, we're not going to do that. Let's work on shifting into peace and shifting into another timeline, right?
Is that because we had Roswell and extraterrestrials came sort of to stop the the development of the atomic bomb when that happened, that it was more activity?
Yeah, and that was fated as well. And they aren't the only ones. There were beings before them. There were beings after them that the council has explained to me have come to serve and help. And then right now we're in a time where I'd say for the past 10, 15 years, we haven't had a lot of assistance, but now we're starting to get assistance again since 2021. We're starting to get a lot more assistance because there's only so much that can be allowed to happen, right? We're prime creators, but we don't remember. And when we begin to awaken and remember more about our experiences, we all have our own councils. I'm not unique or special in that, you know? And the more we awaken to that, those creators are helping us, and they're training us to understand and how to keep peace and how to be compassionate, loving beings. So there's just so much that I could tell you that they've taught me about this, and it just gets pretty deep, and it's a rabbit hole for sure.
Oh, yes, there's so many questions here. We are prime creators, you said. Does that mean that on other planets there are not prime creators, and that humanity, like, right?
Oh, they are too. I mean, it's a different field of creation than ours. You know, not a lot create with 3D. There are only a few other star systems that create with 3D, such as the Hyades is one, you know, that's strong. Alpha Draconi is another. You know, and from what many people know about the Alpha Draconi, it can be 3D in a way that's destructive. And then other creator beings have to step in and prevent their involvement and intervention in, say, places like Earth. You know, that's a baby planet in comparison. We're so young in comparison to the experience that other people have had, but we are the only one that has so much deep protection in this. Other beings can create and destroy and do so much more, but we are so much more deeply protected than we are aware.
So speaking of fate, even though they go together on Earth, will things like, will it go well? Like, will Mother Earth, will she, not ascend, but will we go into the higher dimensions?
We are already there.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So we have multiple versions of Earth, like hundreds of versions of Earth that are experiencing that. And the more we stay in the frequency of love and awareness of compassion, the more we begin to see and become aware of that particular version of Earth. And we live it a little bit at a time. And the more we detach and undo our belief systems in time, like heal the brain from the pain that Earth has caused, we can see those beautiful versions of Earth playing out, like in small components. Like this is what people call timeline shifts or quantum leaping, different things like that. What that is just you becoming aware of what already is for a blip moment, and then you become afraid or something distracts you and you shift back to a painful consciousness. Then in that moment, you go back into the old Earth. So everything that is painful that is still here is pain that has already happened and that we have already healed from, and we are already experiencing many, many, many versions of beautiful 5D Earth. And Gaia is beautiful and whole, and the bees are alive, and the polar bears are still here. And then there are other potentials that are mostly like re-experiencing of the past, is what I would say. And those potentials, people think, oh, we're going to blow up Earth. No, we've already done that. We've already done that so many darn times in some versions of Earth, right? And the people that did not want that to happen created something else. And this is the beautiful Earth that we live on now. But we're dipping in and out of those timelines all the time. And there's just hundreds of Earths. But all the pain, that's already happened. That's already been healed, and that's complete.
So a few years ago, you spoke about that the galactic help kind of disappeared for a while, and now it's coming back. And I've thought about that too, that I felt that we were speaking more about sightings 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but also sort of on the dark side, the abductions and all these programs. Could you say a little bit about what you know about that? Is that over and now there are benevolent extraterrestrials that are coming to help?
Yeah, not over. We have benevolent experiences. We have painful abduction experiences. Like there's so much. And something that the Raw group has talked about with me is that you can set forth something called a call or a calling. And basically it's when your frequency is so strong that you align towards something. And these are when these negative abduction experiences happen. But even those experiences are there to empower you so that you step into your power and shift strongly once you recognize that. And then we have experiences where we set forth a calling, but then our fear takes over. And it was meant to be, say, an upgrade in the DNA, the etheric DNA, a spiritual experience, a healing. But we became afraid and the brain's fear took over. And then we have these moments where the brain it's so powerful and it creates a negative experience of these moments that were actually positive. So our brain lies a lot about abduction experiences as well.
Is that in the next 10 years, Erlen is saying, Yannicka, in the next 10 years, there will be absolute concrete knowledge on your planet, on Earth, that extraterrestrial species are out there and that they exist on other planets. In the next 10 years, that will be concrete. He says that will be known by everyone, and it's going to completely shift the paradigm of who human beings think they are in the universe and in our galaxy. He's also saying, Yannicka, there are millions of inhabited planets in this galaxy alone. He says, in this galaxy that you call the galaxy our planet is in, there are millions of inhabited planets. And he's saying they're at all levels of being he's saying in the energetic sphere, in the levels. So there are planets that are nothing, he's saying, but water and fish. There are planets where it's a caveman, savanna style humanoids. He says, but also there are humanoids he's saying they basically have our shape, but they look very different from us. And he's saying that most of what people are talking about he's saying in the extraterrestrial fields, most of the 60 or so extraterrestrial races that people are talking about that they've sort of leaked and are trying to get out, most of them are real. Those really exist. Those are on planets. But he's also saying right now, and he's saying, Melissa, let's put a cap on this a little bit. He's saying, Yannicka, the one thing you should know, however, is that even though your governments have made deals in the past with some of these off-world species, he's saying right now there are high numbers of very benevolent off-world species that are keeping a sort of a watch on our planet, because our planet's getting ready to do this big paradigm shift. So we aren't meant, he's saying right now, as Melissa would say, we are not meant to be eaten alive by aliens, right? That's not what's in he says that, I'm sort of joking and he's joking, but in other words, that there are some protections. He's saying there are protections in place. And the reason that there are protections in place is because the Creator God wants Earth at this point. He's saying the whole idea here is that finally, our society, our civilization on the planet is meant, he's saying, to make that positive jump, to make that paradigm shift into that next positive place. Because he's saying, we've come to this place a few times, we've come to this precipice, and then he's saying either by geological issues, something happening on the planet that is catastrophic, or by our own hand, he's saying, burned ourselves down, right? So we shift ourselves back again to sort of that caveman thing. He's saying that's not meant to happen this time. He's saying the bulk of humanity is meant to shift forward and make this jump. And it's interesting, I'm saying now, it's interesting because 6 or 8 months ago in sessions, Erlen was saying to people, it's very important how you keep your interior thoughts, your worry tamped down. Don't worry constantly about what you don't want the world to be like. Don't worry constantly, because you're sort of praying with intention. Intention is powerful in humans. But now he's saying there are enough humans on the planet who are starting to get this information, Yannicka. He's saying shows like yours, Yannicka, and Next Level Soul, and all the people doing this work, you are reaching so many people that finally, he's saying, the scales are tipped. We've made it past that he's saying, he went like this, that thin line where we needed to get to of people who are awake. We've tipped it. So he says now that sort of impending, he says, are you going to destroy yourselves? No, you're not going to. The bulk of humanity is going to make this shift. And so, and Erlen is saying now that's one of the reasons why the book has that below the name of the book, it says the good news for the next 100 years, because we are going to make it. But it's exciting to me when he says, in the next 10 years, the paradigm shifts are going to be huge. Mm-hmm. And he's saying, and Erlen is saying now, he's saying, Yannicka, over the past 40 years, 50 years, right up until the covenant ended, many of our world leaders were reptilians in the masks of humans. And he says that was very important for them, even some of the religious leaders. But he says the interesting thing right now is that has stopped. That has stopped.
What about free will?
What about free? In what way?
Right.
He's saying,
because if we have free will, why are they stopped? I thought we couldn't be stopped.
They've been stopped because they've been stopped. The reptilians have been stopped because Erlen is saying the covenant that was put in place was done as a measure of, he's saying it was a measure of a sort of a judgment or a punitive action, because he's saying right now, he's saying, Yannicka, the one thing after free will that species are not supposed to do without the direct knowledge of the creator, they're not supposed to create new species, okay? They're not supposed to do that because souls come from creation. So he says there are species that he's saying right now, this sounds very bureaucratic. He says, but there are species who get the okay from the creator, from the creation force, to go ahead and make a new species, usually at the behest of the creator. But here's the reason why. The reptilians, these species that came to our planet, they wanted workers. They wanted a slave species. So they created us, and they kept trying to create us without a soul. But when they kept doing that, we weren't, Erlen was saying, they wanted us to be able to think just enough to work for them, but not think enough to then revolt against them. And they were having difficulty doing that. So eventually, one of these species, which was the reptilian species, said, you know what? He's saying, we're going to go ahead and make a species that has a soul, but we're not going to say anything about it. We're going to just keep it on, keep it private, keep it hidden. And then once we're done with this species, we'll just annihilate the whole group of them. We'll annihilate the whole group of them, right? And Erlen is saying this is like 260 million years ago when this happened. So but what happened was that kind of thing, Erlen is saying it's very difficult to keep that kind of behavior because the creator knows, in other words, the energy. He also says that the minute that one species creates a new species that has a soul, immediately he says that starts a whole progress. That starts a whole, he's saying, procession of events on the other side, because now you have these baby souls, right? You have these baby souls. So he says, when the creator understood that, the creator sent angelic beings and the tall whites, which are Pleiadians mostly. They're part of this, Erlen is saying they're part of this council. And he says, people talk about the universal council. People talk about the universal kind of
federation.
Yes, the federation. He's saying the federation. He's laughing, he's smiling, and he's saying he hates to use the word federation because of Star Trek, right?
Oh, right.
He says Hollywood sort of co-opted that, but yes, the Universal Federation. So what happened was that the Creator God sent them in at that point, here we are, we're this kind of slave species working for and he says, this is why the Sumerians, in their writings and in their carvings, they show all these large, draconian looking, he says, because and here we are, he says, this little species sort of standing there looking up at them, carrying their water, carrying their food. This is what we were doing. So the Creator God finds this out. He sends in the Federation. He sends in the council. He sends in a bunch of angels, and they come up with this covenant. And the covenant is this. Okay, you create, he says to the reptilians, these people, the species that made us, you made them now for the next eons of years, because they lived a long time. right up until what is our 1963, you have to take care of them. You have to teach them to take care of themselves. You cannot be gods over them. You cannot hurt them. You can never annihilate them. You are supposed to help them to grow up. And until you do that, until the covenant ends, you are not allowed off the planet, because you can't make a slave species. You're not supposed to do it. So they agreed to this, and then Aralam is saying, and then Yannicka, they went right ahead. They enslaved us. They taught us certain things. They taught us language. They helped us to learn agriculture. They even helped us with technology down the road. But what did they do? They kept us clamped down in complete control. They didn't let us understand that humanoids with souls are powerful energy workers, powerful healers. They did not share with us that there were other species in our galaxy. They kept us in the dark, because then it made their time here on the planet much more enjoyable, right? Much more enjoyable. And so in 1963, that covenant ended, and they were ordered off the planet. They were ordered off the planet. And the other thing that happened with them is that now, Aralam is saying, and Yannicka, as a result of that, they still have free will. They've gone off to their planets. He says they're doing what they want to do, but now they always have this light of creation on them. So they'll be looked in on, right? They can't be trusted because they broke this covenant. And so that's what that was all about. So their free will is not gone, but what they were asked, Aralam is saying, Yannicka, they were asked he says it's as if they created a child, and God said, now you have to take care of that child and you have to raise them, and you cannot mistreat them. Okay? But what they did is they did mistreat us horribly. And so, but now they're all allowed to leave the planet, and they're going. And he says it's a huge blessing that they're leaving, because now the truth, he's saying, the truth of how powerful we are as souls in this galaxy can start to come out. And he says, and he's saying right now, he's saying that's why it's phenomenal. The work that you're doing, the work that other people are doing, are really opening people up. And he's saying, Yannicka, he's saying, there's no need to, he says, I'm not proselytizing. I'm not telling anyone what they need to believe. He's saying, I'm just opening the door to the possibility that we're so much greater than we think.
Wow. So they have been here for a long, long time.
They've been here he's saying right now, they have been here through the rise and fall of at least 18 humanoid civilizations.
Yeah.
And part of your sort of awakening also then included this first contact experience. And I've always been interested and curious about extraterrestrials ever since I was a young girl. Could you share how that was like? Yeah, and how real it felt?
Yeah, definitely. Do you resonate as a star seed or a star being?
Yes.
Yeah,
a star seed or
for sure
being,
you are.
or, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what happened was, I think what happens for people, at least it did for me, and I know that this happens, is that when you have some sort of near death or some sort of experience where your light, the light that you are as an individuated being, becomes so bright, through a near death experience can make that happen, right? Or working with real pure frequency energy will certainly illuminate the light that we are. When that happens, beings in the so-called higher realms, or in other what we call dimensions or planes of existence, they see that light. They become more aware of you. Now, that first contact experience happened almost very quickly after the near death. So there was an evening where I was sitting on my porch. I was living in Maui. I lived in Pukalani, and I was on the golf course, and I was meditating, but I was very conscious, very aware. And at a certain point, I remember opening my eyes, and there was like a very low ship, and I knew it was a ship because it was something like 2:00 in the morning. You know, the airports were closed at that time, and it was doing circular motions. I mean, noticeable circular motions. And at that time, I was so, like, I would say clueless about star beings. I did not understand any of this stuff. And it was all pre-2012. So I had this idea that they were going to come help us in 2012. I didn't understand dark, light, none of it. But I just remember I was already very telepathic. And I remember saying telepathically, like, oh my God, if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. Like, I was just so amazed that I was watching a ship. And all of a sudden, the next thing I knew, I mean, I was in an awake state. I was on that ship. And the only word I can use is that I was transported on that ship. And that the experience was now no longer physical, but like physical, but not physical. The way I would describe it is like plasma, another dimension of physicality, but non-physical in the sense of what we call third dimensional physicality in this reality. So on that ship, it was as if, first of all, I had free reign to move. I wasn't, it was not what I call abduction experiences that people have had where it's brutal. They're being experimented. That's like lower realm stuff. That's like what we would call negative aliens. We could call them that. This was star families. So there was free movement to a certain degree. I was able to walk about, certain places. There was a point where I walked into a room and I could see this man who now I would identify as Palladian, but back then I wouldn't have known that, there were cameras, a lot of cameras, like they knew everything going on the ship. I was able to walk down a corridor. There was like the doors would just kind of open, like a Star Trekky kind of, the doors would just open when you'd stand in front of them. When I stood in front of them, I remember going into this big stadium. There was a woman there who I recognized, but didn't recognize. I now would identify her as some form of maybe, hybridized reptilian. In any case, she asked me, do you want to go back into this area? I said, what is it? She said, it's where we keep our children. And I said, no, I just want to go home. She said, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I remember that so vividly because that was so weird, right? And she asked me, can I put an implant in you? She didn't call it an implant. Can I put this so we can stay connected with you? There was an implant. And then I started to walk back. There was time in there, but in any case, as soon as I said I wanted to go home, they showed me the way to the door, like the door opened, and then I was back on the porch. And I remember being or back in my house, at least. I was inside the house at that point, actually. But I remember the next day, I was so angry because I felt that. I was like, what is this? For weeks, I was angry about it. I did not understand what was going on. I kept asking, what was that? What was going on? And every night I kept the meditating up. I would get these downloads. I call them downloads. They were like signs and symbols and patterns of geometry and numbers, things I couldn't make sense of. And I asked every day, what is this? What is this? What is this? And all I ever got was, you'll know when the time comes. You'll know when the time comes. And that is what happened. It took me time to integrate all that. Yeah. That's the first contact experience.
Are they here helping us? Because it's hard. These emotional things are just there. We get triggered. We don't know where it's coming from a lot of the time. People go to therapy for years and it's not resolved. And I don't think for all of us, and especially, people watching these kinds of shows, I think the willingness is so there.
Yes.
It's but how? I feel a bit hopeless. I get a lot of emails I'm doing this thing. So it could be helpful to know, are we being helped? Because sometimes it seems like it is, difficult.
Yeah.
Difficult.
Well, let me say two things. First, we go through years of therapy. I'm not discrediting that, but that is old paradigm. The solutions will not be found through the brain. The brain does not have these. The brain is a vehicle. The brain is a tool, but it is not going to happen. And even on the mental plane is still, fourth dimensional consciousness. the solutions that we're seeking are way beyond fourth dimensional consciousness. So we have to get beyond the brain to try to figure it out. Now, I'm not saying there's not value in therapy, but I'm saying that's not where the solutions will be found. So that's why people get frustrated. I totally get it, because I have been going through that with people, like I'm here, but
Something happened to our sound.
All right. Now go ahead. I'm up bad.
Okay, Chairman, can you hear me?
I hear you now.
All right. So your thoughts.
Man, that was like I seen it the first time, it just brought back all those memories. They are giving us so much information, and it's good that we could hear this, because like when we get in our little conversations explaining things, it's like being with, how can I put it? Because this is so deep. But they're trying to tell us something, just like we're trying to tell society something, but we have to come together and tell our thoughts, and we can build on that to take us to another level. But if we can't come together and discuss these things, we'll never know. My people perish for lack of knowledge. And the lack of knowledge is because you're not seeking that knowledge. How are you going to know something if you're not seeking it? And they've given us so much knowledge and experiences that they've had. It's amazing. But that's why we were put here on earth, to basically come together. It's like when she said that the different earths have been destroyed. She's not speaking of this earth that we're living on, but other planets they call earth have destroyed themselves because they didn't come together. They had wars, like I talk about in my book. I talk about we were ready to destroy the universe until we drew a truce and decided to bring people from different solar systems and put them on earth. And here we are right now trying to get it together. And will we? Well, they're saying that, yeah, it's all going to come together, because they were channeling, especially the first lady. She was dealing with the channel. Most people probably don't know what the channel is, but there are quite a few that do. And this channel was talking to her to tell her different things. And she was talking, to the audience itself. But wow, it's just, I think it's beautiful. I think that it's gonna happen. They said in 10 years. I think it's gonna happen before then, because the knowledge that's being displayed even to this day, it's just opening minds, letting people know that the sooner we do it, the better it's going to be for all of us. And I mean all, every living soul. It was meant to be that way. And it hasn't happened because we've been selfish, but it's coming together.
All right. Hey, son, you had reservations about what you're hearing. What are your thoughts on this thing?
All right. Well, so I just listened to it in totality. So gotta kind of readjust. So my first reservations were this. I'm not gonna lie, I automatically get skeptical when I hear our Caucasian constituents start talking about ETs and they neglect the melanated ETs, or neglect to mention them, right? But I have to look at it like this, especially the second lady, I forget her name. I think she gave us exactly what she was supposed to give us. I think she said everything accurately too. When she started talking about the reptilians, the Sumerians, and in this story that that's going around, or that we're now promoting, that there's a group of extraterrestrials that created human beings, right? But we've got as melanated people, we've got a a piece of evidence, which is ourselves, that gives us a tenure on this planet, and let's say a parallel timeline or a parallel stint on this planet, along with whatever creator ETs that were here. Saying all of that to say this, we put this in the book already, and I'm just gonna get straight to the point. Reptilians didn't create melanated people. I just gotta say it straightforward. Okay, reptilians didn't create melanated people, and this is not a biased statement I'm making. More than likely, they did create every race that we consider Caucasian, including Arabs. More than likely, that's what happened. All right, and particularly that reptilian race created Arabs and Caucasian Europeans that we now know today. And so, because when you listen to that lady talk, she said that Nordics and tall whites had to intervene to stop reptilians from doing their entire bidding, right? And what she was talking about, she also mentioned in 1963, they were told to, or they were given a mandate to, implement a life protocol to where, if you create life, you have to cultivate it and take care of it and protect it by universal law.
Pay child support.
Yeah, indeed. Now, the thing is, let's be real here. Again, melanated people, we've been on this planet for a long time. Just like she said, they probably seen 18 human civilizations come and go. Yeah, so have we. So have we. All right. So I think, saying all of that to say this, I think she was speaking from her perspective the best way possible, and she was giving some good information. I'll say this: she was all of them were giving from the best of their ability.
Yes.
The conscious effort, the spiritual effort to ascend and evolve. Setting aside whether they would, they're technically, or let's say them being politically correct about what they were saying. I'm not even going to hold that against them, right? What I took from it, I'll say the best thing I took from it was they know we need to start tapping into these higher dimensions, and we need to get on the stick of creating a utopia on this planet right now. And I'm trying to tell all of my people right now, it's like these low frequency experiences are worthless at this point. It's like there's no point of going through them anymore, right? So that's what I feel like they were bringing. So I can respect that, and all in all. Okay, I'll land that plane there.
All right.
There was one other lady that didn't get a chance to speak, but she was as deep as the other four that we heard. But,
okay, we may have to continue this one, and I'm going to encourage some melanated women that have had extraterrestrial experience to come on the show hopefully next week, and we could bring in that other one, to get some response to this, because it's my thoughts that it is one thing that Caucasian women, which is part of the human species,
yes,
have elevated to a frequency to understand these things. Not once did any of them mention Jesus Christ, you know, and they did that because they understand that their ancestors that bought into the reptilian program knew that they created this false image to distract you or divert your spiritual power, your individual spiritual power, to another frequency, and not to hold yourself accountable, you know. And they encourage this species, and especially our melanated people, to depend on a false image going to come and save you. And that was a serious wrong, because that's how they control. Religion was created initially as a manual. I've said this over and over, on many shows. If you look in your glove compartment of your car, there is a manual that tells you what oil to put in your vehicle, how much air to put in your tires, what kind of gasoline. These specifications was developed by the creator or the engineer that created that car. Now, the manual says if you apply these principles or these components to your vehicle, it will extend the lifetime of your vehicle. That's what. So somebody took the manual and made it a religion, and because they figured out that we can pimp this game and make money from this if we give them a limited version of the manual. They didn't give you the whole version of how it all came about. They just gave you the specifics on, maintaining your body. And then, and when they realized that humans were living longer by following this manual, then they even cut some of those things out and came out with new versions of the manual and said, well, you don't have to always use this kind of oil because you were living too long, and that was giving you the opportunity to wake up, after so many years. So they had, just like they said, some of the reptilians, they didn't want these baby souls to rebel, and so they're trying to contain how much knowledge and exposure you get. But anyway, that's how religion came about. And they put a false stamp because they knew all souls have access to frequency, because they emit light, and they had to contain their exposure to the high frequencies because they wanted these souls that were incarnated into these new bodies that they created here on this planet, or was involved in creating, or when they invaded the planet, there were, in my son's words, there were a group of melanated extraterrestrials that created melanated humans, which was in balance with nature. So if you're going to exist on the surface, you needed a special gland, a pineal gland, to create a DNA outline to protect you from the sun and to live in harmony off the surface, the water, being exposed to radiation. So anyway, all of this is coming into play. When we wrote the book, Lucifer's Revenge, we added all of the history of these melanated extraterrestrials. And we explain in sequence how the creation of this new species, which is humanoid, on this planet. Now, I'm not saying it's not really a new species, but this particular generation of humanoids was new in comparison. What did it say? What did it say, Chairman?
I said the thinking is what making them new. They're becoming more knowledgeable.
Yeah. So we, so again, we're looking at, our evolution, our spiritual evolution based on these sequence of things. So go to lucifersrevenge.net, order a copy of this book. And once again, the reason what this book does is immediately give you a basic blueprint of how we came about and the intervention of other species and a formula as to how we're going to fix this thing. Now, one of the points that my son brought out is that these Caucasian women, not one of them, they mentioned the Palladians, which were all Aryan type extraterrestrial, and not one of them mentioned the melanated. And so I'm going to do a side note. When I was researching my first book, The Second Coming, I flew out to Phoenix, Arizona, and I interviewed a group of people, and it was all Caucasian people who had abduction experiences. And this one Caucasian woman that I interviewed, she enlightened me at this point. This was in 1997. And this was after a mile-wide UFO flew over Phoenix, Arizona, and freaked everybody in the city out. But once again, she told me that, she used to be abducted, or she had been abducted, but she experienced, even though the beings that abducted her were either Greys or Aryan type beings, she informed me, she did this purposely, that the Browns, their technology were more advanced than the ETs that abducted her, because they can override their system and come onto their ship from another dimension and comfort her, because they knew she was suffering. They knew she was panicking from these abduction experiences. So if those Browns that she talked about had the technology to override these Greys of beings, that means that they were the most advanced species. And that she purposely told me this to encourage me as a melanated man. You're going to overcome this, and hopefully this knowledge that I'm giving you about your ancestors who created the humans on this planet are going to help you get through this. And I think about that experience. A lot of the Caucasians have abduction experiences on a regular basis because of these covenants. Well, the covenants gave them the right to abduct Caucasian people, but it did not give them the authority to abduct these melanated people. Now, I'm going to say that with reservations, because Betty and
Bernie Hill, Betty Hill.
Betty and Bernie, right. So I wonder if, because what was his name? What was Mr. Hill? I'm gonna call him Mr. Hill.
Barney Hill.
Barney Hill. Because he was married to a Caucasian woman, did that kill the covenant protecting him? Did that forfeit the covenant that was protecting him to not be abducted? Because they had the authority to abduct his wife, but because he married her, that means that gave them the authority to abduct him. What do you think about that, Chairman?
I don't know. That's a touchy situation. I mean, they seem like they have no respect of person. If they want to get you, they're gonna get you. It's like the nuclear weapons that we have. They interfere with that. We can't stop it. But they're only doing it for our protection, because we're at the precipice where we're ready to destroy the whole planet. And if they don't do something to show that they're more powerful, we could make a mistake. You know about the CERN out in France, or is that in that area?
Yeah.
The experiment that they got going on, they're saying that they might make a collision that'll cause a black hole and suck up the whole planet Earth. You know? So I hope that our extraterrestrial cousins are looking out for our behalf so we can continue this experience and experiment that we're going through. You know, we're learning all the time, but we got to be safe.
Well, Chairman, you know, the one thing I keep hearing in all of these, and I research videos just like you all the time, they keep putting it off. They said, well, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, the time is right now.
Yes.
Melanated people, you have been deceived and pimped for so long. The time is now for you to wake up, to join a collective. I mean, and you can get in contact. You just send an email to my son. He'll tell you how you can tie into. We have a movement going on right now to reestablish our Aboriginal status. And once that happens, all of the other cultures on this planet, we all the human race, but there are different cultures will be saved. You know, when the melanated people that have been dogged out for so long on this planet, when we are fixed, the whole planet will be fixed. Because if you have benefited from these deceptions and these systems of division, it's going to be really difficult for you to overturn this. You need the melanated people to fix this. But how they're going to fix it if they're still enslaved mentally and spiritually and psychologically, and and physically? We all the jails are filled up with melanated people, with brilliant people that can fix this planet. You got to reach out and start fixing the people that have been damaged before you can fix this whole planet. So you got to start reversing the system. We have run out of time. We're gonna seek. This is a topic that needs to go on further. We may need to play the rest of that video because we can show you the parallel of how we as a species, how we came about. We can show you that the difference between young souls and old souls. Some of you out there, some of you grandparents out there got grandchildren right now, and you be going like, that's an old soul right there, because they come back and they already know a whole lot of things. You're going like, wow, why is this child so mature? Because they've been here and they retain those experiences, and they're ready to walk past your old systems of belief and enslavement. So, hey, we're gonna continue this track. We're gonna play some more of that video next week, and we're gonna get some see if we can get some melanated women on here, because the melanated woman is the foundation of our species. So if we don't fix her, we're in trouble. Hey, Chairman, any last words before we hand it over to the engineer?
No, you spoke enough. We all have contributed to this conversation, to be continued.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Hey, I'm gonna close it on out. This has been the Straight Talk Network show. We love y'all. Stay tuned for the next episode on this topic, maybe next week. But peace and love. We'll see you next time.
Peace out.
Conversation piece.